breaking inputs coming in. World leaders have now started arriving at the Rajghat. Remember, it is a significant day, not just day 2 of G20, but all the world leaders who throng G20 in full force now will be at Rajghat. We are all bringing you those visuals of the world leaders. Remember, the German Chancellor is also expected to be paying a visit along with other G7 members as well. In the meantime, let me also go across to Abhishek. Abhishek, if you could take us through the itinerary as far as Rajghat is concerned. It's going to play a prominent role. Remember, Mahatma Gandhi completely bodes very well with the theme of G20, one earth, one family, one future. We want the world to be at peace, and who better than to pay homage to than the father of the nation?
Well, we have seen how Prime Minister Modi has underlined time and again during the 1 year of India's presidency that the presidency should work for the people who are marginalized, people, and it should have an inclusive agenda, people who have been left out. And that is possibly the best thing that Mahatma Gandhi has said, that the person who is left out should be included, and unless until the last person has got the benefit of all the developmental policy or the prosperity in the society will not progress in a harmonious way. So that is one of the reasons why we could also see inclusion of African Union in this year's G20 presidency. With now the Union will become about 21 permanent members, with inclusion of a grouping of 55 countries who represent Africa, which is mostly underdeveloped. Poverty is high there, social and democratic and political setup is very unstable. So how the world can alleviate those issues in Africa, how the G20 should look to this African continent and not look away, more concerned about their own policy making. That is something that India has tried to highlight this time. What we are seeing now, that Prime Minister Modi is welcoming so many guests at Rajghat.
And in fact, staying with Rajghat, let me quickly go across to our political editor, Pallavi Ghosh, who's also live with us from the Bharat Mandapam. Pallavi, take us through what should we expect from the itinerary of all the world leaders now turning up at Rajghat. We're also learning that they'll be signing the peace wall, which is inside the leaders' lounge at Rajghat. Take us through the details.
So, you can see those pictures right behind me, which we are watching from the International Media Center. The Prime Minister is personally meeting all of them. And I think the backdrop is essentially a replica.
Let me also go across to Siddhant, who's also live with us right now. Siddhant, as I was asking Pallavi about the same question, if I could take a response from you with regards to the entire plan as far as Rajghat is concerned. We've been intimated about how all leaders will be signing the peace wall. Take us through the details.
That's right. The entire ideology of Mahatma Gandhi, impact has left a huge impact, not just on India, but whole of the world. And perhaps when it comes to hard diplomacy, when it comes to soft diplomacy, it's Bapu's ideology which drives the world towards peace. And this time around, when Prime Minister is giving this message once again that this is not an era of war, then which other location could have been better other than the Rajghat, where right now Prime Minister is perhaps welcoming these world leaders. These world leaders will have started arriving at Rajghat, and they're going to pay tributes to Bapu. And I can see Dr. Tedros, the boss of WHO, has just arrived, and Prime Minister Modi is going to welcome him. The other dignitaries, heads of state, governments, they have also started arriving. So right after this session of paying tributes to Bapu, there's going to be the third session, which is One Family, which PM Modi will chair today at Bharat Mandapam. And after that session, there's going to be series of bilateral which Prime Minister Modi is going to hold with Cosmos, Turkey, UAE.
A political editor has some information for us. Let's quickly go across to Pallavi. Pallavi, before we delve deeper into how symbolic, deeply symbolic is the visit to Rajghat by all the world leaders, share with us what is the information.
So if you can just hear me, Akanksha, we've seen those pictures where each of the delegates are actually going across and they've reached Rajghat and the Prime Minister is personally greeting them. But look at the interesting backdrop, and that's going to be putting up, I'm sure you're getting those pictures also. What he's actually doing is, in his backdrop is a Hriday Kunj of Sabarmati Ashram, or what is known as the Bapu Ki Kutia. So this is very, very symbolic. There you see those pictures right behind me where the Prime Minister is greeting all of them. It's a Khadi stole with a G20 replica which he's putting around all the delegates, and just in the backdrop is what is called the Hriday Kunj in Sabarmati Ashram. And look at the pictures. In fact, the Prime Minister is explaining the significance of this backdrop to all the delegates and personally meeting and greeting them and moving on to Rajghat. You know, the Prime Minister in his multiple speeches, especially the backdrop of G20, has always made the point that the era of war needs to end, and Mahatma Gandhi epitomizes peace and also the fact that war and acrimony is not the way to solve issues. So today, when the delegates are going there on day 2 of the G20 Summit, this essentially is the significance of each of the delegates going one by one to Rajghat, and that's the message from India to the world, that India stands for one of the most thriving democracies, the mother of democracy, but it's always been through not an expansionist policy, no confrontations, but negotiations, communication, talking about peace and talking about love, humanity. That's been the crux of the New Delhi declaration as well, and that's also been the crux of the India's various negotiating skills on even some of the tough times. In fact,
it's very interesting that you mentioned that the development has arrived after the New Delhi declaration, leaders' declaration. The fact that India managed to bring all those polarized countries, whether it is Russia and China on one hand, or the global north and the south together. Of course, as Sherpa Amitabh Kant also pointed out, how crucial was the role of the emerging countries, a view that was also endorsed by India's foreign minister. Having said that, how deeply symbolic is now India's role after the leaders' declaration? And I think that the Rajghat is only perhaps elaborating on the significance of it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Rajghat and the meeting of all the delegates there as they start reaching Rajghat in this raining weather is just an elaboration, a manifestation about what India has spoken about in the New Delhi declaration and much, much before that and beyond. And why just the G20 summit? In multiple summits, on multiple international platforms, the Prime Minister has put forward this narrative of India that we want to talk, we want to communicate, even with those who've not really been very nice to us, even as far as Pakistan is concerned, even as far as China is concerned. Expansionism is not the way to go. We are going to hit back when you really hurt us badly. And remember, those surgical strike and Balakot air strikes were pretty much a part of that narrative. But before that, we are wanting to spread the message of love, because there's enough acrimony in the world. You know, you talk about Russia-Ukraine crisis, you talk about the war over there, and even in those negotiations which have been going through the night, that is a message which is coming in from India. It is quite possible to solve the problems through the humanitarian angle. If you look a deep dive of the New Delhi declaration, I think the underlying theme, Akanksha, which all of us have read, is precisely this, that we need to make the point that expansionism does not really work. At the end of the day, when you point a finger at others, there are many which point back at you. So therefore, if you follow that policy, it's certainly going to come back and hit you. And who does it hurt the most? It's the common people, it's the common man. And that's been the cardinal principle as far as the drawing up all the details of the New Delhi declaration is concerned.
Pallavi, what's your understanding of the role of Mahatma Gandhi when it comes to the current countries which are known as the emerging nations? Remember, South Africa played a very important role in Mahatma's life as well. And one country that's also playing a very significant role when it comes to, in fact, voicing the global South along with India. We also know it's one of the countries that is part of the G20, which will also be leading the G20. What is the role of South Africa at the moment, especially after the inclusion of the African Union?